Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Define Disaster. This is Battlefield 4. Today we're going to be comparing the AEK 971, the FAMAS, and the F2000 with the aim of finding out which of the three guns is the best close-quarter assault rifle in Battlefield 4. Now you may be thinking to yourself, why am I not talking about the Scar H and more importantly, the Bulldog when looking at close quarter assault rifles in Battlefield 4? After all, the higher damage model that these guns have easily compensates for the lower fire rates, making them close quarter capable. Now I've decided to omit these guns for a number of reasons. Firstly, they are a little bit more complex, if you were to talk about. They play differently, they act differently because of this higher damage model, and I think I will make a video about those guns specifically in the future. However, if you want to know, just to give it to you briefly, the Bulldog is equally capable at competing with an AEK, a FAMAS, or an F2000 in close quarter. So I guess you could say I briefly have included these guns, but I will not be talking about them in greater detail in this video. If you ever want me to do so, feel free to leave that down below in the comments and I will make sure I get that video out relatively soon. With that being said, let's start off with the AEK 971. We have a standard assault rifle damage model here with 24.5 as the start damage and 18 as the end damage, and a standard damage drop-off start at 12.5 meters and ending at 60 meters. This is shared by all guns we're going to be looking at today, and thus is not really a point of discussion or comparison. Given that we're talking about close quarter weaponry though, the fire rates are going to be very important, and the AEK sports a very high fire rate at 900 rounds per minute. It comes with a standard magazine size of 30+1 or 31 in total, and starts getting really interesting when we start looking at reload times. With a short reload of 2.3 seconds, that is with one or more bullets left in the chamber, this may seem relatively high for a close quarter weapon, but it is certainly by far the best when comparing to the FAMAS and F2000. The long reload may not be the best in comparison to other assault rifles at 3.6 seconds. That is quite hefty, but once more, it is better than the competition we will be looking at in just a moment. Moving on then to recoil, with 0.42 degrees vertical recoil, the AEK has the highest, by a small margin, vertical recoil of all the guns we'll be looking at today, with the smallest recoil to the left at 0.25 degrees and somewhere in the middle with its recoil on the right being 0.45. What does this mean? Well, it means that the gun not only pulls very strongly vertically, but also tends to pull to the right when being fired. Last but not least, when talking about recoil, of course we have the first shot recoil multiplier, and while all of the guns today have a relatively similar first shot recoil multiplier, all ranging between 2.55, the highest, that being that of the AEK, and 2.4 being the lowest of the F2000. This certainly doesn't help when managing the gun for medium range engagements. Looking then next at the accuracy of the gun at 0.2, it has the highest or best accuracy multiplier or degree of all guns we're going to be looking at today. However, not marginally better than anything else we're talking about. And when looking at hipfire, it loses out versus the FAMAS and F2000 by a small margin at 3.5 degrees when talking about hipfiring while standing and moving. Moving on next then to the FAMAS, same damage model, same damage drop, start and end as the AEK and F2000. Where things start getting interesting is when we look at the fire rate of the FAMAS. With 1,000 rounds per minute, not only is this gun the fastest firing in our comparison today, but the fastest firing automatic assault rifle in Battlefield 4. To kind of balance this out, you have a smaller magazine size at 26 bullets in total, or 25 plus 1. And once more, to balance this, you have the longest short reload we are going to be looking at today. That is with one or more bullets in the chamber. You're looking at a 2.8 second reload that is bound to get you killed in close quarter combat at least once every game. Looking then at the long reload time, that is with no bullets in the chamber, it may not be the worst on our list today at 3.7 seconds, but it certainly is pretty bad, and all of the guns we are looking at today have pretty bad long reload times, so that's no joy for anybody either. Looking then at the recoil patterns at 0.4 degrees vertical recoil, this may be slightly lower than the AEK with its 0.42, but not significantly lower enough that you will actually notice the difference in game, especially not when comparing the horizontal recoil of the FAMAS to the AEK or F2000 at 0.4 degrees to the left and 0.6 degrees to the right. Not only will this gun violently shake back and forth more than its competition, the AEK or the F2000, but it will once more, like the AEK, pull to the right when being fired. The first shot recoil multiplier here is 2.5, so 0.05 lower than the AEK. Once more, absolutely insignificant. Moving on then to the accuracy of the FAMAS at 0.25. This is marginally worse than the AEK, but given that we're talking about a close quarter combat assault rifle, it is absolutely irrelevant and on par in real world performance. The only difference that the FAMAS has over the AEK that may be slightly relevant is hipfire, with a 3.25 hipfire value versus the 3.5 of the AEK, but once more, this is only a very small difference and likely not noticeable when actually playing the gun. Looking lastly then at the F2000, once more, same damage model, same damage drop-off start and drop-off end, but the lowest fire rate we'll be looking at today at 850 rounds per minute. This is 50 rounds slower than the AEK, so not a massive difference there, but 150 rounds per minute less than the FAMAS, which is quite significant of a difference. To compensate for this, it has once more a standard magazine size of 30+1, as does the AEK, and it has a, I guess you could say, in the middle of our weapons today, 2.7 second short reload time, which is pretty bad once more when comparing to the AEK, and a horrible long reload time of 3.9 seconds. Worse than the FAMAS for some reason, even though that this gun is shooting far slower. Looking then at the recoil pattern of the F2000, this is where this gun can really start to shine. With 0.32 degrees vertical recoil, this is significantly less than both the AEK and FAMAS. When looking at the recoil to the left, it may be reasonably high at 0.375. That's kind of in the middle between the FAMAS and the AEK, and the lowest recoil on the right at 0.275. Basically what this means is that the F2000 will pull to the left instead of the right, which both the FAMAS and the AEK do. The first shot multiplier of the F2000 at 2.4 is the lowest, but once more, we are, as already mentioned, it's not low enough to make a significant difference when actually playing the gun. Moving on then to the accuracy of the gun, once more we have an 0.25 value, so not quite as good as the AEK and on par with the FAMAS, but once more, close quarter assault rifle, this accuracy value, or this difference in accuracy value, isn't actually significant in any way, shape, or form. When looking at the hipfire value of the F2000, this is on par with the FAMAS and thus slightly better than the AEK at 3.25. So before we get to the conclusion, let's talk attachments. Now, given that these are close quarter assault rifles, you are likely going to want to put a laser sight on here, unless, of course, you're going to be looking at situations with plenty of smoke so that you can hip fire down your enemy more accurately. That's at least how I play it. Now, depending on your recoil management, you're going to either want to put a suppressor on there for more stealthy gameplay, or either a compensator or muzzle brake, depending on which of the recoils you're having trouble with, be that vertical or horizontal recoil. Lastly, then you can put it on an angle with foregrip. At least I do, because I like to kind of extend the engagement distance by tap firing a little bit of my guns so that make them more useful at medium range. Moving on then to the actual conclusion. What gun is best for which situation? What is the best close quarter assault rifle? Well, it's a very difficult question. Starting off with the AEK, it's, I guess you could say, a jack of all trades. When looking at the guns today, it has that 900 round per minute fire rate, not as high as the FAMAS, but still very high. It has more bullets than the FAMAS, and it has a slightly more manageable recoil than the FAMAS, which make it, I guess you could say, slightly better for slightly medium range engagements versus the FAMAS. But if we're talking exclusive close quarter FAMAS and not 3 enemies but 1 or 2, there's no questions the FAMAS is the best gun. The real thing about the FAMAS is it's all about managing that small magazine size paired with that extremely high fire rate, which means it's extremely challenging to play, but extremely enjoyable. And I would definitely recommend you try this gun out on a TDM map like Zavod. So with that being said, where does the F2000 fit in? Well, the F2000 can't compete, say, under 20 meters with no cover with either the FAMAS or the AEK. But when you're talking about situations other than close quarter TDM, the F2000 is a much more viable solution because of its lower recoil. If you're playing, say, Rush or maybe even Conquest, and looking for something that is close quarter capable but won't leave you completely outgunned if you're looking at an opponent somewhere in the distance or medium range behind a piece of cover, then the F2000 is definitely the best bet. The only really thing that hampers it significantly is its long reload time. So close quarter king is the FAMAS. Close quarter king with a little bit more usability is the AEK, and the gun to use for close quarter situations where you occasionally actually do run into somebody hiding behind a box or 30-40 meters away is the F2000. So as you can see, all of these guns have their places and purposes, and it also depends very much on your recoil control abilities, whether you are very capable of controlling recoil, horizontal or vertical, whether not, and which gun you choose will depend on your playstyle, of course. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have comments or want to join in the discussion, feel free to put those down below. If you disagree with my verdict on these guns, feel free to put that down below in the comments. And of course, if you have a video suggestion that you want to see on this channel anytime soon, the comment section is there for you. But otherwise, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you in the next Battlefield 4 weapon comparison.